The break shot is one of the most important shots in pool. So I am going to teach you some break basics that are going to change everything for you. You will not have to hit the balls as hard to get a good distribution. You will be far more likely to make a ball on the break just by eliminating some of these things that you're doing. Breaking from the rail over here. This is usually, not always, but usually a bad idea in 8-ball. The reason it's a bad idea is because you do not get an even distribution of the rack. If you break from this side of the table, you are pushing balls to a specific side of the table and you are cluttering up one part of the table. Then you have people who are working on a second ball break all the time. You run racks, don't use the second ball break. It's going to mess up too many tables for you and you're not going to have an opportunity to run out if you're using a second ball break. The other thing about the second ball break, a lot of people don't understand why we do it. When we use a second ball break, we're using it primarily for one purpose, guys. It only helps you with one thing, and that is putting action on the 8-ball. It does get the 8-ball moving in the rack, and if you have a chance to make the 8 on the break, you might win. Well, I've done the math for some players that do this, and there's a 75-to-1 shot of making the 8 on the break. But you know what? They're a favorite to screw up the rack and not be able to run out. If you're making balls from over here, you can make balls from here. But if you would like to do a second ball break and make that your standard break, that's fine. Keep doing it. I just hope you and I are playing when you're doing it. Next, the number one thing that I see out of amateur players, and this is funny because if you go back about 20 years and you watch tape of even professional players playing about 20 years ago, you see a lot of them doing the same thing. They're hitting the ball and they're trying to hit it so hard that everybody's cue is flying up in the air. It is one of the silliest, most entertaining things to watch if you see a montage of a bunch of guys breaking where their cues are flying up in the air. What you're doing is taking the energy that should be going through that rack and sending it up in the air. That energy is not going into the rack. But everyone has figured it out. There is an awful lot of speed and energy and power that is not going into those balls. Stop throwing your cue up in the air. If you have an open bridge on your break, you may want to consider learning a closed bridge. Now I know not everyone can make a closed bridge and shoot through it with force. I understand that. Everybody doesn't have the dexterity to wrap their finger around the cue. But if you don't have that, take an hour, hour and a half, whatever it takes to learn to make a closed bridge, because you're going to find almost zero good breakers that do not have a closed bridge. If you want to break from the rail back here, it's okay because a lot of players can make a better rail bridge than a closed bridge. So if you need to come back here and make a nice solid rail bridge to break the rack, go ahead and do it. The next thing, a lot of you have been told, and told correctly by the way, that a long bridge, having your bridge back here, gives you more power than bringing your bridge up here. The analogy that I give people, which is good or bad, it doesn't matter, it's one of my favorites. If you're in a Formula One race car and you're not a Formula One race car driver, your trip around the track is slower than a soccer mom in a minivan. If you don't know what you're doing and have a great stroke, that long bridge is taking away from your ability to hit this ball well. A lot of you can improve your break right now just by making a shorter bridge. All of the things we mentioned so far will allow you to put less effort into your break and break the balls better because you'll be putting more into the break. The next thing that people do wrong when they are breaking, not looking at what happens to this rack and making an adjustment. What does that mean? If I'm playing 8-ball and I get down on this, and I break the balls, and everything looks great. I made a ball over there. I kind of controlled my cue ball. It rolled down very slowly. I don't mind it's down here because I'm bringing a lot of balls down here with it. But I have a nice distribution. I know I made a ball in the side pocket. There's a lot of information here. And by the way, I'm not just aware of making a ball in the side, but I know it was the 2 ball. Why do I know it was the 2 ball? Because I pay attention to what the second balls are in the rack. So I have the 1 up front, which came down here. I have the 2 and the 12 behind it. And why do I pay attention to what those balls are? Because they should be heading over to these side pockets if I'm smart enough to break from the center of the rack. If I hit the center of the rack, guess what? There's certain things I know and know very well are going to happen. And one of those things is that those 2 balls in the back of the head ball are going to head to the side pockets. So one of the things that you're probably doing wrong is you're not looking at your breaks afterwards and analyzing what happened. Analyze your break, figure out what happened, and decide whether or not you want to break the same way next time, and then you can go about running this rack. Now, let's look at our second break. Remember our 2 and 12? There's our 2. Where's our 12? Right here. I'm sending this ball to that pocket with that head-on break. If I had to gauge this break on a scale of 1 to 10, I would actually call it a 7 maybe. And part of the reason is these balls are a little clustered up. Sometimes you have clusters on the table as a result of balls traveling and then finding each other later on the table. That's not your fault if clusters are generated that way. What you need to be worried about is that balls are not coming out of the break area because you're not hitting the rack well. That's when you have a problem. Everyone wants to know, Bryan, where are you hitting the cue ball? I'm reluctant to even tell them where I'm hitting the cue ball because what works on my break might not work on yours. What works with my stroke might not work on yours. You need to make an adjustment. But this is where I'm hitting the cue ball. Just slightly below center is going to be my starting point. If I am ending up putting top on that ball and I see top spin as it hits the rail and it starts to move forward, then I know that I need to get lower. If it is coming straight back at me like a rocket, I am hitting it too low. Now, this is important because guess what? You don't hit this ball where you think you're hitting it. You have an idea where you want to hit it, but once you execute it, unless you have an absolute perfect stroke, there's a good chance you're not making contact with that cue ball where you think you are. You have a starting point, and then you're going to change things if it's not working. The 9-ball break is its own animal. It is so different that you could be a world-class 8-ball breaker and not good at 9-ball breaks. You could be world-class at 9-ball breaks and totally suck at 8-ball breaks. It is a different shot with different characteristics and is a lot more predictable than the 8-ball rack. With the 8-ball rack, I can tell you 3 things that are almost always going to happen or that I can control. In 9-ball, it is extremely predictable. We can, not 100%, but about 50% of the time, tell you where almost every ball in the rack is going to go. But there are certain balls that we are trying to control. The 1 ball, we're trying to head over here to the side pocket. If it doesn't go in the side pocket, it comes off the rail and comes down here. The cue ball, if we can keep it near the middle of the table, or I prefer to bring it down here after my break because I know my 1 ball is either going to be in that pocket or it's going to be down here waiting for me. And the wing ball. And a lot of people don't understand the wing ball here, but we are talking about the ball on the side that we're breaking from. So if I'm on the left-hand side, The wing ball is that 8 ball that is on that side. The best 9 ball break is going to be from the rail. Now, a lot of misinformed or less educated players are going to say, well, I just saw a tournament and every pro was breaking from here. The reason they're breaking from here is because by rule, they're being forced to break inside the box. The box is a square within this area here that by certain rules, you're forced to break in there. Why? Here's why. It's that easy to control the rack that they had to make rules to keep people from putting the ball over here and controlling the rack. So if this is so great that it's illegal in a lot of events, why would you not do it? You're playing APA. They're never going to change that rule. They're never going to tell people to break in the box. You break in the box because you're forced to break in the box. It's like running sprints with a parachute. Are you going to say, well, I want to run with a parachute because that's what this guy is doing? No. Get yourself over here to the rail, find a spot in the rack, and work on your break from here. When I say find a spot on the rack, I am hitting the 1 ball right there. If you see this diamond back here, that's my target. Is that your target? Probably not. Your target is going to be different depending on your table and the table that you're playing on. I know that if I aim through the rack at that diamond, I have a very good chance of making the wing ball. I have a very good chance of making the 1. Let's take a look at the 9 ball break. I'm hitting the cue ball just below center, and you'll see my follow through is on the table. So you see, a lot of things we knew were going to happen. The 1 ball would come off of that rail and head down table. Our wing ball would go into that pocket. We made another ball in this pocket. That's our 9 ball break. Now, at the beginning of the break, I told you I am aiming for that diamond. That's my break. But if things are not working out, if I'm not making my wing ball, if I'm not controlling my cue ball, if I am not sending the 1 over here and then off the rail, what am I going to do? I'm going to aim for a different spot and put the cue ball in the exact same spot. So I might start aiming here. If my wing ball is falling short or long, I'm going to make an adjustment there. If I am not controlling my cue ball, I might have to hit the head ball a little bit better. If the 1 and the wing ball are going in the pocket, I actually try to change that. Because if I can keep the 1 on the table and I know it's going to be down here, and usually, not particularly this time, but usually my cue ball is either in the middle or at this end of the table, and I'm down here with the 1, come on guys, that's not a pattern rack. The 1 always goes there, right? I know that I will have a shot on the 1. One other item, I used the magic rack for this break. When I practice, sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. A lot of people don't play with a magic rack. That's okay. The only way you have a controlled environment while you are learning your break is if you use a template. If you don't use the magic rack or some other template, then you are a slave to how well or badly those balls were racked. If there are gaps in there, guess what? The wing ball doesn't go, the 1 doesn't come over here, the 2 doesn't come down table. You might not even control the cue ball. You should be hitting them in a different spot altogether if there are gaps in the rack. So eliminate that so that you know exactly what is happening with your rack under the proper conditions. Remember, we're going to analyze it, see where everything goes. We have the same pattern that we had on our initial break. So let's see what happens with everything. Our wing ball straight in the pocket. Our 1 ball tried to go in that side, came down table where we expected to go. The 2 and the 3, once again, down here. I will do a video for FXB TV that talks about pattern racks, exactly how to rack them, exactly where to hit them to make the pattern work, because just knowing the pattern doesn't get you there. You have to hit them in a certain way. So I will be teaching you that on FXB TV. Those of you who are members of that platform, you will see it. But in the meantime, this is a nice break. The 1 is near the pocket. We put it there. The 2 and the 3 are in the middle of the table, and we made our wing ball.
Hey gang, if you enjoy FX Billiards on YouTube, you'll love FXB TV. It's the ultimate streaming platform for exclusive videos, tips, and techniques you won't find anywhere else. Plus, when you join, you'll get free access to all our master classes, a $150 value with more than 150 videos that will never air on YouTube. Plus, you will get to watch our YouTube videos before they go public. Watch them early, ad-free, and with tons of bonus content. Join now to lock in our special introductory rate and be part of the FX Billiards community.